Okay, hello. So in this video, I will be reading the book How to Save a Life, and this is the inside story of Grey's Anatomy by Lynette Rice, I believe. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Excuse the voice. I kind of got a little sick, and then like a couple days later I ended up losing my voice, but it's coming back. It's almost 100%. So if I find myself a little annoying, I might do a voiceover on this part in my regular voice. But until then, I'm like almost 100%, so I'm thinking, okay, I can finally film. But I've been doing a lot of reading mostly lately because of the vocal cords. I've had this book for a while now. I think I bought it like around the year it came out, but I just never got around to reading it. But now I am officially reading it and I'm having a good time. I was really excited to like delve into this and see what this is about. So this is basically kind of a look in the background about how Grey's Anatomy was getting started and what was happening. Like we take a look through like the actors' eyes, producers, directors, different people that were working on the show, and a look through their eyes and behind the scenes on what exactly was happening and how this phenomenon came to be and their reactions to everything that was really going on around the time that their show was like one of the biggest shows to air. So it's a combination of what she personally interviewed people on and like what interviews people had done in the past for this book. So I thought she was a writer on the show, so that's my bad. Going into this, I thought she had some even more behind the scenes knowledge of the show. So I thought she was a writer on the show. That is incorrect. And I was telling my friend that I was going to read this book, and I was like, oh yeah, a writer on the show wrote this book about Grey's Anatomy. And so she's like, is that the same writer on Grey's Anatomy that's like crazy? And I was like, what are you talking about? And apparently there's a show, because I looked it up, there's a show not on Lynette Rice, on another writer at Grey's Anatomy. And I think the show's called Anatomy of Lies. And it's about how this writer had like lied about her life, and then it was shortly found out what she was lying about in her life. And I was like, that's crazy. But I was grateful that it wasn't about this writer. So yeah. But yeah, I'm having a good time. If I'm not 50%, I'm very close to 50% through this book. I'm reading, and it is a nonfiction, so I wasn't really sure, and I'm not a huge nonfiction reader, but I wasn't sure how it would be, but it's pretty interesting. And so what do I remember about the show Grey's Anatomy? I feel like I was a little too young to watch it when it first came out, but that didn't really stop me. I tried to get as much as I could, so I don't really have a great memory of the first couple seasons. Like, I don't have the strongest memory. I feel maybe the first couple episodes, not first couple seasons, because I feel like maybe I shouldn't have watched the show at the age that I was when it first premiered. But I remember everyone was talking about this show that came out. It was like the show everyone was seeing, and then the next day people come back like, what did you think of the episode? So I remember it was a big phenomenon, and they do, from what I've read so far, they do talk about in this book how it kind of went crazy and everyone loved it more than they thought. And what else do I remember? I remember the core group of actors, like the first original actors, and I loved all of them, and I do miss them a lot. I miss the beginning of Grey's Anatomy. It was just different than how it is now. I don't really watch Grey's Anatomy. I haven't watched, I think, since Joe and Alex got married, so whenever that was, I think shortly after I stopped watching the show. I was kind of, it was dying off for me, and then I kind of stopped watching. I don't watch any of the new seasons, unfortunately. But I feel like I watched it for a long time. But what do I remember about the show? I remembered that your favorite characters were never safe, and that was something new that I don't think I experienced a lot in TV. Like, your favorite characters, by the end of the season, they could be gone. And you never knew who was gonna be written off or what their character's death or anything like that. You never knew, because Shonda, you loved her writing, but you hated how she would rip your heart out and like make you feel so much for these characters that when they're gone, like, it was like the end of the world. so many things happen that your favorite character could be gone, could be the next one gone. So I remember that. I remember the core group characters. I remember how sad I was when a lot of them were leaving or their character deaths. I remember the George episode, the 007 episode, that was literally sobbing when that happened. I remember Denny. I remember Meredith and Derek when they adopted their baby. The whole Christina and Burke relationship, and then Owen, and then all this stuff. I remember when new characters came in, when is it Mercy West? They had the orange scrubs. I remember that. It was when April and Jackson and that new group of characters eventually came in. It was like so many characters at once came into the hospital. I think they were merging with another hospital at the time. Like, my memory is hazy. I haven't seen the show in so long. So I remember things like that. It was a time. So yeah, I remember so many good things about this show. It's such a good journey. And so I'm just really, I love things like this, like the behind the scenes of a TV show, because I'm a TV nerd. So I love things like this, and I'm really enjoying this book so far. It's definitely not like oh, I need to pick it up and see what's going to happen next. It's not like that, but I'm just enjoying casually reading it. I'm mostly just reading it on my lunch breaks at work, and that seems to be good. I'm getting through a good chunk of it. So those are my thoughts of when I kind of think of Grey's Anatomy and what first comes to mind. There's definitely also a lot of drama with some actors surrounding the show as well, and the book does talk about that. It was, and still is, a show that everyone is still watching. It continues to be renewed for season after season, so these people are doing something right. But it definitely started it all for me for knowing Shonda Rhimes. I didn't really know her at all, and to me it was the first, at least for me, it was the first time a producer was like very well known. I personally didn't know a lot of producers or even their names. Maybe I know their work, but I didn't know like a household name like Shonda Rhimes. So that didn't really happen for me until I heard her name, and it could be because she was like the creator, writer, and everything for the show, including the producer. And then following her success with Grey's Anatomy, she had this whole night called TGIT, absolutely loved, and seeing a woman kind of having her own night on television was like, wow, this is amazing. I've never seen that before. So just seeing her doing it with three very successful shows, like, limitless. Those are things that come to mind when I think about Shonda, when I think about Grey's Anatomy. So yeah, I'm having a good time reading this book. Okay, so I'm currently on page 116, and so again, I wasn't quite sure what this book would cover. I knew it would be behind the scenes, but I'm not sure exactly what would be covered in the book. We started out with like how in the beginning the show, people weren't expecting it to be great. They just needed a show to fill a slot, and that was it. And so everyone was really surprised at the success of the show. Went through who was it? I think Isaiah Washington and his departure and what happened with that. And for some of that I kind of knew about, but I guess there was more that I didn't really know. I thought he said the slur once and he was gone, but actually he said it twice, and they're like, okay, we need to go. Currently, where I am, they're talking about the Katherine Heigl departure, and I remember that. I was really sad when Izzy was written off the show. I was like, no, because Izzy was one of my favorites. They definitely talk about the characters and the relationships in the show, and how Meredith and Derek were the relationship of the show, and how other characters came along, and like J-Pro and stuff. So, and they're talking about like how like George and Meredith slept together, and then Izzy and George, and then George married Callie, and all these things. And I remember those relationships and how much I hated them, and I was like, I hate this. There were a lot of relationships on the show I did not like. There's a big one that everyone loves that I absolutely hated, and sorry not sorry, I'm not a J-Pro fan. I never liked J-Pro, so I'm sorry. Maybe at the beginning I liked them, but then as time go on I grew to dislike J-Pro. And I know like my sister is a fan of Grey's and she loves J-Pro, but I'm just like, I liked her with the paramedic. I was like, girl, this man is the man for you. Because I'm sorry, because I think I was being more realistic in the relationship instead of a Hollywood relationship. I was like, girl, this paramedic, his views align with your views, like, but she, like, her heart just didn't love him. And I know her heart loved Jackson, but they were just not great together. Because I think morally, like, their morals and their, mostly, like, their world and religious views did not line up. So I think, and those are really big things in a relationship. So if those things don't align, I don't think it can be a successful relationship. And maybe there are couples that make it work or whatever. But I think for how important those things were for April and how they weren't as important for Jackson, or like his views were very different. Not very different, but different from April. I never saw the relationship going long term. And they would argue over the same things about these morals, about their views on certain things. They would always argue about it. And I was like, you guys are always arguing about these points. Maybe you guys are just not, you know, maybe you guys aren't meant to be if these are things that are like deal breakers or things that you really have problems with each other and they can't. I was just not a fan. So I liked when they wrote her up, when she was making her departure and she was with Matthew, because to me that made sense. The fact that Matthew took her back after she left him at the altar, though, I don't think I would be that kind. But to me that made sense for April and him to get together. I think when I really hated April was when at the wedding scene and she left her husband and he stood up and he was with his date. Those things irk me to the max. I'm like, the wedding is too late. It's too late because you had all this time. You had time because it wasn't like they were eloping. They planned that wedding, you know? So they had all this time. He had all this time to convince her to leave with him. And even before she walked down the aisle, and doing that while he had a date with him was just so, I was like, I could never forgive you. And I disliked them even more during that. I know people love that. And I was like, no. I'm like, if one of their partners were like bad people, I wouldn't. But it's like, they're both kind people and they were just with people who were in love with someone else. And them doing it at the wedding made me hate J-Bro even more. Hated J-Bro. Never liked J-Bro. I dealt with J-Bro because I knew, I was like, the show's making them end up together, so it is what it is. Like, I had to deal with it. But never liked J-Bro. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. I just never liked them. But anyway, I'm currently on the section when it's talking about what was happening around Katherine Heigl and about her departure from the show. We even talked about Addison and her spin-off Private Practice, which I've heard about, but I've never seen. So maybe I need to give it a watch because the way they're talking about it sounds really good. Pictures from the show. Like, here's some of the pictures from the show and different magazines. I'm enjoying this book. I'm glad I'm reading this. Yes, come with my journey and I'll keep you guys updated on how the book is going and what I think. Okay, I am now 50% through the book. And I just got to the part where they're talking, right now they're talking about different guest stars that they've had on the show and how even their guest stars have made such an impact on the show. And I can remember a few, like, you know, it's a hospital show, so you're going to have tons and tons of actors being patients in the show that are probably only going to be there for one episode at least. A couple of them have come back for multiple episodes, but a lot of them are only there for that one episode. But some of them are just so good, or the stories are just so good that they make such an impact on the fans. I remember one accident scene that there was there's like these two people connected by a pole and only one of them made it. That was so sad. And I remember everything during like the shooting episode, and then there's the bomb episode. So many things happened at that hospital. But like, again, things like that, when you get to know the patients and you kind of love them and love their stories, and they just make you fall in love with them. Even though it's one episode, they make you really enjoy and have so many feelings about that episode or that particular character. So right now they're just recounting different guest stars and how a lot of them get approached by people saying, hey, I remember you from Grey's, and they only did one episode. They didn't think it would be that big a deal, but they realized with their interactions with certain fans that it really resonated with a lot of people. We also talked about How to Save a Life, which is the title of the book, but also it is the name of the song, which is definitely always kind of intertwined and associated with Grey's Anatomy. And they talk about kind of the artists of the song talk about what was kind of going through their minds when they were writing the song, and it was kind of really emotional, and what was going on in their lives when this song was happening, and how Grey's Anatomy fit exactly what they were trying to say with the song. And the rest is history. Like, people know their song so much, and a lot of people first heard it probably on Grey's Anatomy. Also, what I read was the departure of Patrick Dempsey. So I got to that part already. And I remember a little bit of rumblings, at least with his departure and his leaving the show. When I originally heard it, like before I read in the book, when I originally heard that he was leaving, from rumors and things that I was hearing and like different stories going around, it sounded like it wasn't, like he didn't want to leave. He was written off the show because like hard to work with, or something, not hard to work with, but something on the set with his like demeanor, and that's why he was written off the show and people just couldn't take it anymore, which was really sad because he had been there for so long. So that was kind of sad to see. And maybe, you know, it was just his time to, at least for like the working on the show, it was just his time. Like they've done this for so many years. I think it was either 15 or 16 years, and it was just like time for something new. I remember so I had watched Grey's Anatomy and then kind of fell off, and then I heard that Patrick Dempsey this would be his last season, and I was like, let me see how they're gonna write his character off, because previous to this, as I mentioned before, when they write off characters, it can be heart-wrenching, like how they did George, how they did McSteamy, how they did Lexi, like different things like that. They can be harsh. And usually the ways they write off characters that I enjoyed the most, from what I've seen, the ones I enjoy more, I thought, or think that is more satisfying, or like gives it, I don't know, the ones that resonate with me more are the ones where we do see the character unfortunately pass. Even though I don't want it for everyone that has left the show, I don't want all of them to pass on and not come back, but to me those have been some of the most well written ones, or at least the ones that have resonated with me the most. So initially I assumed that they were going to write him off or like kill him off, and I was like, okay, this is going to be his final moment. They gotta do it right. And I'm not gonna lie, when I saw the episode and how his last moments, I was disappointed. And because I had heard the rumors, I was like, they did this because of how he acted on set, and I just didn't like how they wrote his ending. This character, as we had Meredith and Derek, I just think their ending to their love story should have been better. And again, I know in the future he does come back in dream sequence type of way, and I have not seen those episodes, so maybe those justify what had happened in his death scene, but I just wasn't happy. I didn't really like it, but it is what it is. So yeah, right now I am 50% through the book, and we're just talking about the different characters that had made an impact, and how they're talking about the different patients they had, and how certain stories resonated with fans more than others. But I'm having a great time. I definitely think I'm going to finish this tomorrow. I'm kind of hoping I finish it tonight because my niece is coming over tomorrow, and I'm not going to have time to read this when my niece is running around wanting to be entertained. So we will see how much I get done. Okay guys, I'm so close to being done. I feel like I'm going to finish this tonight, so I'm just going to finish reading. So in this last little bit of the book, they're talking about some of the most memorable episodes from the season. One was, like I mentioned before, the one where the two people were stuck together. One was the shooting episode, and different things like that. Just going over the most memorable episodes in the show. So this is really fun and cool. And I'm glad they're ending the book off this way. Or at least I think they're ending the book off this way. I'm not sure. I'm not done yet, but we'll see what happens at the end. So yeah, let's get to the end of this book. I have finished the Grey's Anatomy book and I'm so glad I read it. It was really cool to see it behind the scenes. So towards the end of the book, we got a little bit about Alex Karev and his character's departure and him leaving the show and what people's thoughts were on that. And the book kind of ended around there, but mostly, as I said in previous clips, it was just talking about the behind the scenes and what an impact this show had on different people. But I had such a good time reading this. It is a nonfiction, but I feel like I got through it pretty quickly just because it was something very interesting to me. I love seeing how things are filmed, behind the scenes, knowing a little bit more about a show and going more in depth. So even though this wasn't a book written by someone who's actually on the show or worked on the show, this was someone who worked in entertainment and was around when this show was happening and was filmed and interviewed certain people on the show as well. I would say this book is definitely worth a read. If you are a fan of Grey's Anatomy, I would say definitely check out this book. I think it's worth the read. If you're interested in learning more about behind the show and that interests you, this may be a book that you would enjoy. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Feel free to check out my website. I will leave the link below. You can also follow me on all social platforms at ATS_MGO. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Well, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, week, month, and hopefully a good rest of your year. And until next time, bye.